Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Edwards, and this is the Channel Zone podcast. Now, today's guest is Marcus Davidson, Principal Revenue Enablement Manager at Mimecast. So he's someone who's been shaping sales talent, behavior and performance at a global level for a long time. Marcus brings serious pedigree, nearly 17 years at IBM, 3 years at Emarsys, and now close to 6 years at Mimecast. He's travelled the world this year in the name of enablement and talent development, and we're lucky we caught a moment in his schedule to record this podcast. Marcus is Command of Message certified, and he has a passion for the art, science and psychology of sales. And as his LinkedIn posts make clear, he can nerd out on enablement theory all day long. That's the first time I've heard that phrase, nerd out. I'm taking it. I will use it from this point on.
Please use it.
We're recording this at the start of December, right at the start, so I should first congratulate him on taking part in November. Was there a tash there until a couple of days ago? That was last year's photo.
It was AI. No, it was actually AI. So Google were doing this thing where they were going to donate money if you did like an AI profile of yourself with a fake moustache. It was literally an AI fake moustache, and I'm just like, and here's the funny thing, Mark. And by the way, thank you for that amazing introduction. You actually make me sound quite competent and amazing.
Absolutely,
so
we try.
I love that. I've never had an intro quite like that before. That's amazing. But yeah, so that I cannot grow an actual moustache, right? What you're seeing here is probably 3 weeks worth of stubble.
Right.
It's incredible. So to have the opportunity to have a fake AI moustache, I absolutely grabbed it with both hands.
Well, it looked fantastic. It was one of those thick, really strong kind of moustaches, and that's why I wondered as to whether, because here we are, it's the 2nd of December, I wondered whether you'd still have it, or perhaps you might have a raw top lip having shaved it off. Yeah. But there we are. It just kind of shows, it's an odd one. A lot of the time, we see things now, and I kind of assume AI automatically, but I did not assume that was AI. So I basically fell into that one. So I might have to do it myself. I imagine what I'd look like with a strong moustache. We'll have to see.
It's funny, isn't it? Just on the subject of AI, and we may cover this later as well. So there's actually, again, you might find this on my LinkedIn profile. There's an AI live, a video avatar of me. So we use a platform called Synthesia. And so for training purposes now, they can kind of clone me. And my manager's been saying for years, we really need to clone you, Marcus. Now he has the opportunity to actually do that. So there's a virtual avatar of me, which I use for, putting some training together. It's so good. And because you were saying, you don't always know what's AI and what's not. But literally now I have people come up to me going, your delivery was just so amazing. It was just pitched so well. And I was just like, did you not realize it was actually AI? The giveaway is I don't have hands yet. I've been promised I'll get hands at some point because I do a lot of, I speak with my hands, as you can tell. So apparently my hands are coming at some point in the future. But isn't that amazing that people literally cannot tell the virtual Marcus from the genuine article?
I'm stunned. I haven't looked at it. I did see it in the post. You said your boss had done it for you, I think, is the post relates to somebody, I think, having put it on. But I will check that because it does make me wonder as to whether, that is the future in many respects. You are effectively now are truly scalable. You could video yourself doing something, but also the reality is having AI to craft the message is probably going to, no offense, it's certainly ChatGPT. You mentioned the introduction. Thank you, ChatGPT. It crafts language so well, so much stuff. I can put my words into it. And when I read it back, what ChatGPT has done to it, it kind of nearly brings a tear to my eye sometimes. It's good.
It's great, isn't it?
Yes,
but do you find you have to personalize it? Because what I find sometimes is when I've done exactly that, it can either be a little bit dry or a little bit obvious. And I think for me, the real benefit of AI is to kind of break the back of it. But I still feel it's important to put a bit of myself into it as well. A bit of Marcus and a bit of Mark there as well. Because otherwise it's just it's a bit flat and it can be kind of indistinguishable from every other kind of AI thing as well. So I think it's really important that we maintain our humanness.
Definitely, and we've got to learn how to use it. It is an extraordinary assistant, making a big difference to the way that I work, and we will touch on it briefly, I think, as we come to the latter stages of our chat here. Let me kind of start, if I can, and kind of dive in. One of my questions here about enablement itself. you describe yourself not only, your title is Principal Revenue Enablement Manager. I don't know if that's PREM, Principal Revenue Enablement Manager, but also you also refer to yourself elsewhere, I see, as Principal Talent Enablement Architect. And there's a specific change of words there that I just wanted to drill
Yes.
into. What's the difference on those two perspectives of Principal Revenue Enablement Manager and Principal Talent Enablement Architect? And why does talent keeps popping up again in your profile? So why does that concept
Yeah.
matter so much?
But you know what? It's massively important to me because I think from the revenue enablement piece, that's kind of a wider piece. So within revenue enablement, you've got all the traditional stuff like, you've got sales enablement. It covers sales, it covers SEs, it covers, success. But it also covers things like the product enablement, the solution enablement, which isn't really my bag, right?
Right.
I'm more about how we sell
Yeah.
rather than what we
What?
sell.
Yeah.
And the what is the important bit, and the what for me is where the people comes in, right? So the talent. So by talent, we obviously mean the salespeople, the SEs, the client success people. And so for me, talent enablement is looking at the art, the science, the psychology, or another way of putting it is the tool set, the skill set, and the mindset of salespeople. And my job is to make them as effective as possible.
This episode of the Channel Zone podcast is brought to you by In Connection, the trusted events agency to some of the biggest names in IT. In Connection knows that in today's fast-paced world, it's not just about delivering a return on your event's investment. It's about delivering unforgettable experiences. Because some events fade within hours, while others become memories that are talked about for years. In Connection, the go-to event agency for the IT channel, creating memories that matter.
My job is to make them as effective as possible at what they do, which is ultimately selling. Or actually, do you know what? Funny enough, I don't even really like the word selling. It's
Right.
about helping our customers make the best buying decisions. That's what it's
Brilliant.
all about for me. So yeah, that's for me what it's about. So it's coaching, it's instructor-led training, it's kind of virtual sessions, and honestly, Mark, this is what I've said to you before. I have literally the best job in the world, right? Because they send me all around the world. I get to meet amazing salespeople. I spend time with them, coaching, doing sessions with them. I watch the light bulbs going on, and then I still get emails from people that I enabled like 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've just popped up out of the blue and said, Marcus, I'm just thinking about you. I'm still using the techniques you taught me. I'm still smashing my number. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm like, Mark, who gets that in their job? Who
Yes,
gets
yes.
people after 10 years just popping up wanting to say thank you? And so that for me is what talent is
But
about making people as
interesting.
effective as possible.
And but you also said there a contrast with, about selling was about helping your clients to make the best decisions. I think is
Yes,
the word that you
exactly.
used there. I don't
Yeah.
know if you ever came across the book by Mohan Khalsa, Helping Clients Succeed. Because that
No.
strikes me. I think that would probably be a book that you might want to add to the books. I'm guessing, like myself, you've got a pretty extensive selection of sales books there. But if you
I
haven't
call
got
it the
that one,
stack of shame
right? Well, I would
because I haven't got through
seriously.
them all yet.
No, they're there for reference. They're there for
Yes.
reference, and of course, we could now
Yeah.
use ChatGPT to give us a very much a summary of all of
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah.
But Helping Clients Succeed by Mohan Khalsa, I think you'd probably appreciate. But the command of message is
Oh yeah.
perhaps one I'd like to learn a little bit more of. Of all of the methodologies, as I said, I went over to Atlanta to do the Helping Clients Succeed. I've done things like challenger selling, target account selling, all of
Yeah.
the major methodologies over the past, but not command of message. That's the one that I probably have missed, and it has been, I would say, pretty significant. I might have heard it for the first time or heard of it maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not sure how far back it goes, but as a certified command and message trainer, can you tell me, or tell our audience here, what do you think is the real strength or strengths of that methodology, and where does it create the biggest impact or performance lift?
Oh, do you know what? Again, I could nerd out about this stuff for ages. I think for me, the beauty of command the message is, and I think with any methodology, by the way, you need to really get to the core of what that methodology is, because a lot of these things come with a bit of fluff and a bit of bluster and a bit of
Right.
bloat, if that makes
And a
sense.
lot of them are
So
the same as well. You know what I mean?
a
There's
lot of them are the
parts of it
same.
that are consistent.
Exactly. So my part of my job, genuinely, is to turn quite complicated ideas and theories into really things that salespeople can understand in simplistic terms. And I can say that because I used to be a salesperson. Like, salespeople need to be spoon-fed, right? So my job is to distill down in essence what it is. And I think for me, the reason that command message is so effective is because when you distill it down to its core, it's the same, and I'll explain this in a second. It's the same as, like you say, there's so many other messages. It's the same as like the grow model in coaching. It's the
Right.
same as the story arc in any good story. And what it comes down to is this, which is the kind of now state or the before state. So where are you now? What are the consequences if you don't change? Then you look at the future state, which is where do you want to get to?
Yeah.
And what's the benefit of getting there? And once you've understood where you are now and the consequences of not changing and where you want to get to and the benefit of changing, what's gonna help you get from A to B in terms of a solution? And only then, once you've covered all those areas with your prospect, have you earned the right to then talk about us. And I love that because I hear day in, day out. So the salesperson gets on the phone with the prospect. The prospect asks one question, like, can you do X? And the salesperson opens the back of the truck and literally gives them everything on the truck. Or suppose they've been trained to do that. I mean, so, a new, there'd be like some kind of new from product marketing. They'll say, hey, you've got to talk about our products in this way. So they're really eager to try it out. They open the back of the truck. With command the message, you have to follow that narrative first of all. Spend 75% of your time really deeply understanding your prospect. And only then have you earned the right to talk about us. And then you can talk about how we do what we do and what makes us different. And so for me, it's that structure and it's that simplicity of where you are now, where do you want to get to, how you're going to get from A to B. Like I say, you'll see that in so many other methodologies.
Yes.
But it's just, yeah, for me, it is that kind of people can follow it when they're on a
Yes.
call. They can literally have it on a piece of paper and follow
Yes.
that methodology step by step.
Yes.
So for discovery, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
And I'm guessing, because you can also get tools now, that if they were on virtual calls, you could even be monitoring that and you could even be assessing whether it followed the command of message flow, which is intriguing. The other element, as with all of those methodologies, I said it makes absolute sense, requires a massive amount of discipline then to actually instill. Because the salesperson really can go, as I said, they open the back of the truck because they have the ability, the opportunity to do it, I suppose, and they think that that's the way to do it. To take people from where they are now, because of course, I suppose Mimecast are employing and recruiting grads and bringing them into the business. They're the ones that you can truly mold, I think, to take on board all of these elements. Many of the other more established sellers that are coming into the business, and I'm sure you recruit and employ many of them, 10, 15, 20 years behind them maybe, working in other companies, trying to get them, in many respects, to not necessarily being successful to get a job at Mimecast, but it's a challenge to get them, I think, sometimes to even give it a go, use the methodology, discipline yourself, because it will require discipline, because you're likely to want to revert to type, as we all do when we try and change our habits. So, yeah, intriguing. There's no book though. I don't. Is there a command of message book on generally available?
I don't believe that. If there is, I haven't found it. No, I literally went to San Francisco and learnt to how to deliver it from some of the best people in the business. So I don't think there's a book. But I don't think I don't think you really kind of need the book. The basics are quite simple.
If it's the as is, where are you now, and what are the implications of it? How are you getting on with it, and where do you want to get to? As out there, the as is and the to be, and as you said, there's a gap between the two, and away you go. There's a whole bunch of sales techniques that you can, or sales questions that you can bring into that. So, but you're still behind it. When we first met, which is a few years back now, I think command of message was strong with you then. The force is strong. The
force is strong with me,
absolutely,
that's for sure.
And it still seems to be the case now. So that's got to be a sign of something solid, something that's working, and something that you value and the company values. So that's very, very good to see. You're not just doing a pick and mix. It's not the flavour of the month. We've tried that one, now we're on to something else, then something else. Because I think maybe some companies do go through that. But anyway, let's progress, if I can, in terms of you've used the term, already during this conversation. You talk about sales being a mix of art, science, and psychology. So that's clearly one of your phrases. Yeah, there's a mixture of art, science, and psychology.
Yeah.
So how do you balance those various elements, not only in delivery, but maybe I'm interested also in kind of, design, how you kind of put your enablement sessions together. And are organizations, can you make another point, are organizations perhaps too focused on one or other of those three, art, science, and psychology? Tell us more.
Yeah, and look, there's definitely grey areas between all three. So that if you plotted them all out in a pie chart, you're kind of smudging the lines between them.
Yeah.
But I do think there are three very distinct and separate things. So the art for me is like the creative part. It's the storytelling, and it's the bit you can't always teach that. Do you know what I mean? I think it's something that people have. Now you can kind of codify it, and for people who haven't got that, you can codify it and you can help. You can do like. I suppose the analogy is, it's actually quite, oh, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, I've never taught someone how to paint, but I should imagine some people are natural born painters.
Yes.
For other people, you've got painting by numbers. So you can get pretty much the same effect, right? So you've got methodologies that will actually help people capture what other people are really good at, but in a way that's, so if that makes sense. So there's that, we can have frameworks around storytelling and kind of creativity, that kind of bit, the art. But when you see it, it is a thing of beauty, and when you see people selling creatively, it's like this. It's like a well choreographed dance between the prospect and the salesperson.
Yes.
So that's the art. The science is more around the kind of process and the data and that kind of stuff, which is for me the kind of less interesting part, but it's important. It's important, and that's where we tend to lean on sales operations to kind of help us out with that kind of stuff. The measurements and that kind of thing. And then the bit you mentioned, which is the bit that people don't tend to lean on quite so much. And for me, that's the psychology or sometimes the mindset. Right. And you don't often see that in kind of sales training. And for me, it falls into two parts. One is the art and science case of confidence. You often hear people say sales is a confidence game. And when salespeople don't have that confidence, when they lack that confidence, it absolutely shows up in what they do. So I do a lot of work with salespeople, both on a one-to-one basis, coaching, but also in groups around. You've probably heard of the OK Corral. I'm okay, you're okay, and helping sellers have belief in their right to have a conversation with prospects. Brilliant. Because what we do actually matters.
Yeah.
What we do genuinely matters to people. So you think about people in a C-suite, they've got problems, they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, and what they don't want is a salesperson phoning up going like, "Hello, Mr. Prospect, I know you're very busy, but could you possibly spare me 5 minutes of your precious time?" That's what it sounds like to me. And what the prospect hears is, you've got nothing of value. You have no belief in what it is that you're trying to share with me. However, when they go in and they change their wording and they change their attitude to, look, I'm okay, you're okay. You may have a more important job title than me. You might get paid far more than I do. But I've got something in the kit bag here, which is of genuine value to you. And I think it's important, and I'm really, that we have a conversation. And I'm confident that you're going to find value in that conversation. So when you change the wording, it completely changes the game. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around confidence and also just positivity. Changing negative words or positive words has such a monumental, profound effect on the way people perceive you and how they feel about you and how they want to work with you, just based on the kind of words that you use. By exchanging negative words with positive words, that the results are off the scale. So I spend quite a bit of time either, like I say, doing separate sessions on those or tagging those on to other enablement sessions, so that I've always got an element of the mindset in there, because I just feel it's so massively important.
Right.
And just so undervalued.
A few things. Nice to hear I'm okay, you're okay. That's a book I was introduced to back in the early 1990s. Right, okay.
Yes, same here. It changed my life overnight.
Transactional analysis, if I remember rightly. That's what that was all about. And you also mentioned belief there. I don't know if you would have, back in the 1980s, 1990s, there was a gentleman in the US, I think he was from a southern state, Zig Ziglar, who's a very famous kind of motivational sales speaker from back in the day. But I think he always said selling is about a transference of belief. And I said that's also often, I say it is. It's the missing. I think it's the keystone. Actually, you could have a great product, Well, if the salesperson doesn't understand that they've got a great product and they've got a great product that can deliver something of value, then I think they're failing to realize the opportunity, the potential that is there. So the transference of belief, the confidence, and I think with many organizations, it may not be the case with Mimecast. I do a lot of work with MSPs, managed service providers. Well, what's the difference between one MSP and another MSP? They've all got maybe a slightly different portfolio. But I would suggest that the key differential there is going to be the individual. It's going to be the seller, basically the person fronting your organization. And that's why in MSP land, by the way, that's why the owner, entrepreneur, founder is typically the rainmaker, because they're the ones that do have that belief in themselves and in the business. But it's, as I said, it's swagger. Fantastic.
It is, but it sounds swagger. But I just want to give you one quick example of this, Mark, because again, look, I could nerd out about this with you forever. So
this is going to be a long podcast, I fear.
It's going to be a damn good one, though, Mark. I promise you that it's going to be a really good one.
Excellent.
So you may have heard of. There was a neuroscientist called Louis Castellanos, which I'm probably not doing his name justice there.
Right.
But I don't think stuffing people into a CAT scanner is the right medical term, but he put people in a CAT scanner, and he measured the response in the brain when they both used and heard positive language over negative language, and it lit up the parts of the brain which are associated, like the pleasure centers of the brain, the bits that are associated with money and sex and food and all that kind of stuff, right? And what he did, he worked with top chefs and salespeople, and he found that by helping them incorporate more positive language into their day-to-day, their results just went off completely and utterly off the scale. And I thought this was really interesting. And what I did was I listened. So we have Gong. We use Gong to record our sales calls, right? And I wanted to hear what our salespeople's response was when a customer would say, "Hello, Mr. or Mrs. Minecaster, how are you today?" I wanted to hear their response, the Minecaster's response, because invariably, as you'd expect, their response was not bad, mustn't grumble,
right,
can't complain, looking forward to the weekend, or can't believe it's Monday already. So there's a lot of sentiment there. And I wanted to see what happens if we change that from not bad to I'm great, or I'm excellent, or do you know what, Mr. Customer, thanks for asking. I've had a fantastic weekend, and I've spent a lot of time researching your company, and I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have moving forward. And I'm really, it just changes the game. And exactly what you're saying about you take MSP1 and MSP2, or you take Mimecast and you take a Mimecast competitor. Think about the impression that leaves in the prospect's mind when you've got a salesperson who says, when you're asked, "How are you today?" can't complain, mustn't grumble, versus a salesperson who says, "Do you know what? I'm fantastic and I'm really excited to be spending time with you." And their products are ultimately the same. Who are you going to want to spend time with moving forward?
That's amazing.
It's I've
never said mustn't grumble, or
but people say it all the time. I know.
But as I said, as you say it, you know that it's out there. I'm intrigued. There's a few things that are coming to mind for me here. I'm not sure that Americans would use those terms. So they would generally be.
You'd be surprised. They do.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they say they use a lot of not bad and a lot of can't complain. Or another one I hear a lot is just chugging along. And I've even heard people say, I can't complain, but no one would listen anyway. And how can you say that in front of a customer? It's just it's bizarre, isn't it?
What you say, I'm giving a name check here to a gentleman who was on the last series of the podcast, Roy Ferrari. I met him many, many years ago when he was at Granada Computer Services. But he's written a book about his career in sales. Mm-hmm. And reading through he was completely of that mindset. Everything was brilliant, fantastic. He used that kind of positive mental attitude to enthuse everyone around him, and it was the beginning of his sales career. I'm seeing him again in a couple of weeks' time. He's still pretty much the same now. And I haven't seen. It's interesting that you bring the psychology element to it. I mean, you're bringing in a few different elements there, but that is also PMA, positive mental attitude, which True. I don't know was the book by Norman Vincent Peale, but it said, and the use of language. I don't know if you've followed any Scott Adams. Scott Adams was the creator of the Dilbert cartoon.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
But he's a huge believer in reframing any situation just by changing the words, the terminology. So very, very interested in what it is that you're saying there. So,
Well, I can very briefly give you the science behind that
please,
again. It's fascinating. So, your brain responds to positive terms much faster than the kind of double negative terms, and it's because you think about it. Someone says, "How are you?" Or the typical one is you go to a restaurant and you say thank you when they put the meal down, and they kind of say,
That's right.
well, God, I've got this. They go, no problem, right? So what you've
Right.
got is you've got not bad and you've got no problem, rather than you're welcome. So let's take not bad. So what happens is the
Yes.
brain hears the word not, and it thinks, oh, I don't like that. That's negative. And then the next word comes along, and the next word is bad, and it thinks, oh, I've got two, but oh, I really don't like that. Then the brain goes, hold on a minute. Actually, not and bad together. That's a positive thing. It takes a while for the brain to work on it. But here's the thing, Mark. This isn't the scientific word, but the residue, the feeling that's left
Yeah.
behind by
Yeah.
not and bad is still
Yeah.
wholly negative, even
Yeah.
though the brain, on a logical sense, works it out.
Yeah.
Whereas when you say I'm great or you're welcome,
Yes, I like your
it's
welcome.
just too positive. The brain responds better. It gets it straight away, and it's left with a positive residue rather than a negative residue. And that's
The other
exactly why
word
it
you
works.
used, the other word you used a little earlier, you used the word sentiment, which is again
Yes,
key to
exactly.
this. So I
Sentiment.
think that is
Yeah.
definitely a part of it. And also, as you were talking through then on the positivity or negativity of the words used, I'm transported back to the 1990s when I would have studied NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which
Oh
I'm
wow!
assuming
Yes,
again is
yes.
part and parcel. I've got, as I said, between the two of us here, we need a checklist of all of the books, training courses,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
sales gurus that we've kind of read or listened to or been to see in the past. So it's fantastic. I can see it all literally coming together here in our conversation. Now then, so in terms of, I'm intrigued on new skills and competencies. I've had conversations elsewhere. I just want to kind of sense it with yourself. New skills or competencies kind of creeping into the requirements for modern sellers. So I'm not sure if you went back 10 years ago, you were probably looking for a salesperson of a certain type, possibly
Yeah,
blue
yeah.
suit, white shirt, red tie, BMW driving salesperson. Maybe not even 10. I don't think Mimecast has ever really been of that blue suit, white shirt,
IBM
red
definitely
tie.
was.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You wouldn't have been
absolutely was.
interested with the moustache. Of course, you'd have been fired at IBM. You weren't even allowed to have facial hair
No.
back in the day. But are you seeing a shift in the new salespeople that Mimecast are looking to bring into the business? Is there a change in the requirement, or are you looking for the same type of salesperson as you were 5 or 6 years ago? Are there any trends in let's say capabilities or competencies?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the AI thing, and we need to get
Yeah,
that rat on the table, right?
yeah,
So you need to be
yeah.
competent with AI. But the
So
way I
people
look at it
need now. Is it now on the list, though, Marcus? Is that is now? It is. It's a core competency required. We need people
absolutely,
to
yeah.
do. They can do this. They need to know how to use an AI assistant.
Absolutely, yeah, and we, various agents, and just for, but then when you look at what they're using AI for, it's still those traditional things which were important 20, 30 years ago. So it's still
Yeah,
doing research. We
yeah.
still have to communicate with our prospects and customers. And so rather than spending time on an email, you're just saving time by, breaking the back of it with AI.
Yes.
Again, research is another one. Just kind of understanding where the risks are in your opportunity. For example, we can now use AI to analyze all the calls and emails, and it will tell you where the risk is and where you need to be going next, right? You still had to do that as salespeople. It was just a little bit more difficult. So I think there's definitely a skill there to be able to, use AI in that way, but it's only to support traditional sales
Right.
skills. And it's interesting what
Right.
you were saying, because if you believe, the latest sales book or the latest sales training organization, and they'll say, sales is becoming more complicated. There's more stakeholders. Customers have got more information available to them than ever before, and normally they're telling you this stuff because they want to sell the book or they want to sell their methodology, right? And I kind of get that. But what's really interesting, Mark, was recently I was looking at. I'm just trying to remember the guy's name. Who I'm looking around. Yeah, Todd Capone, right? And he took a whole bunch of sales books from the early 1900s, and some of those lessons most of them are still the same. People were saying in the 1900s, customers have got far more information than they ever had before because of advertising, right?
That's right.
And now we're saying because the internet, right? Oh, there's just more stakeholders than before, and there's more risk, and all these things have always been present.
Yes.
It's just how they manifest is different. So I do this a lot, Mark. You ask me a very simple question, and I take a very long time to get to the point. But my point is this: yes, there are definitely skills. Yes, we definitely want people who are great communicators, who are great at synthesizing information, are great at doing discovery, are great at helping people build a business case. All those wonderful things, but genuinely, are they new things? They're the same things. They've just got a different spin. We're just doing them slightly differently, but at their fundamental core, those sales skills haven't changed in a century or two.
Coaching, you mentioned the grow model there. So are you big into coaching at Mimecast as well?
Honestly, it's what I live for, Mark. And here's the thing: my managers I've had over the years. And by the way, I've been blessed to have some amazing managers over the years. But there's one thing they consistently say to me, which is, Marcus, coaching isn't scalable. Right? You just simply can't do it at scale. We need you everywhere. You need to cut down the amount of time you're spending on coaching. It's the manager's job, right? But Mark, it's the thing that keeps me alive. It's the thing that I enjoy doing. I love the immediacy of it. So I've always said to every manager, I'm gonna be disciplined about it, but I have time in my diary, a couple of hours a week, that people can just pop a meeting in for coaching. They know it's there. On a Monday afternoon, I think, and a Thursday, I forget what it is exactly, but those times are blocked out in my diary. If you want coaching, just put some time in there because I enjoy it. I just enjoy the process. I enjoy the immediacy of it. I love. In fact, going back to what we were saying earlier about making sales simple, right? My job is to make sales really, really simple for people. All those concepts that people make a lot of money from saying sales is really, really complicated, right? Yes. My job is to say, no, it's not. And the best feedback I can get after a coaching session is when someone says, Marcus, it sounds so simple when you say it. Dude, it is simple. It really is simple at the end of the day. Just do these things and then you're absolutely be fine. So yeah, I really enjoy coaching. It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to spend time with people who then go off and make a lot of money and become successful. And the last thing I'll say, by the way, is when I say that, I'm taking no credit for that because they do all the hard work. I get a lot of credit for coaching, but ultimately they're the ones doing the hard work. All I am is the catalyst. And I just love being.
But I love but at the core of it, the enthusiasm you have for it is undoubtedly the sentiment in your coaching sessions. I would have thought is probably fantastic. Is there a difference between doing coaching in person or via Zoom or Teams?
Yeah, it's. I definitely do prefer in person, and again, you just can't beat spending time with somebody. Just aura and presence of just being with someone. And of course, times have changed. We do have to do it over Zoom. And yeah, there is a difference. Do you know what? Could I even tell you what that difference is in reality?
Please do.
I don't know, but you know when it's there. Do you know what I mean? I just think I suppose part of it is, you and we're here, we're looking at each other like we're over a desk.
Yeah.
Now, in reality, if I were coaching, I would be on your side of the desk.
Right.
I would not have a barrier between us. So there's a physical thing. We wouldn't be looking at each other. But
it's like we're across a table, isn't it? Although the picture on the screen, by the way, is we're side by side. But if I look that way, if you could look likewise, but we're not really there. As you said, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me.
It's like we're across the table.
Yeah, exactly. I've not made that differential before. Very, very interesting. Something else I want to pull out, if I can. You mentioned aura and presence. Oddly enough, I was just editing a podcast last night with Ed Rennick from Acronis. He mentioned, I don't think I've ever had anybody on a podcast, or actually in a professional context, use the word aura before. You've just mentioned it again, literally 24 hours after that.
How funny.
He was saying that again, and this is the in-person element. You pick up on things in person that you can't get across, a Zoom or Teams on a virtual platform. Mimecast. So we kind of talked about in-person coaching there. I'm also sensing the marketplace now maybe coming to the conclusion that we need our salespeople back in front of customers and not having so many meetings on Zoom or Teams. It's lovely and convenient. It's fantastic for customers as well. Everybody is so efficient, so efficient. Are you with us on that? I think we need to get back out there in the room with the customer. Your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. Just literally shaking someone's hand, and it's not just that. It's the little walk from reception to the room where you're having that little bit of interaction. Do you know what I mean? It's just being able to just build a bond physically, and just that, human touch is just such an important thing, even if it is just a handshake. IBM used to teach us how to shake hands. Can you believe that? They used to teach us how to shake hands. They used to teach us
how to enter a room,
how to enter a room, how to have a decent pen. Do you know, all that kind of good human stuff, which you don't get across Zoom. So I'm very much an advocate of that. And look, again, I get it. Economies of scale. If you're dealing with SMB customers, and it's not a huge opportunity, then fine, it kind of makes sense. But if you have the opportunity, if they're 10 minutes down the road, then for goodness sake, just go and see it.
Listen, if it's hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, surely it's worth the investment. But as I said, the example I will give, I only recently I went over to West London. It's a 2 hour, an hour and a half drive for me to get there. Half an hour parking the car and sitting in the car park before going in. An hour with the customer, but it was a great meeting with two people from the customer. But then back to the car, another hour and a half, 2 hours drive home. I mean, that's the day. One meeting and that is the day gone. Now, clearly on Zoom or Teams, many people will be having multiple calls, but as I said, I'm sensing, I wouldn't say it's a panic, but I would say there's a sense of urgency out there in many organizations at the moment that our salespeople just need to be in front of customers more. Certainly for new business, certainly if there's new people within the client organization, Zoom and Teams, the virtual platforms are fantastic for kind of following up on things. But to make that impact, I think you have to be there in person. And I agree, Mark. Is there a drive for that within the business?
In certain sectors, I think certainly in enterprise, definitely.
Yes.
And I think also, going to see partners, and so we do, and we try and meet people at like events and stuff as well. That's really important. But here's the thing, Mark. And I'm not trying to be disparaging of the youth in any way, because they're great in so many respects. But people that we're seeing come into the business now don't necessarily know how to structure a meeting in person. They don't necessarily know how to present yourself in person. They don't,
they might not even know how to shake a hand, and again, confidently.
Exactly, and looking in the eye, that kind of stuff, and so so I think we need to look at giving young salespeople, the confidence and the gravitas to be able to do that in a way that they're comfortable with and works for the customers as well. So I don't think it's as simple as just getting them out there, because we've got to equip them to be successful. I think.
And that confidence, I think, though, comes from exposure to it. The more time you spend in a boardroom talking to C-level people, the more comfortable you're going to be in that environment. So, as I said, you have to start, and then they have to kind of build upon it. It brings me on to kind of, I've got a couple more kind of questions here. And this next one does connect very clearly to it. We originally met, I checked the other day, in autumn of 2019.
No.
Yes, it was. Notably before lockdown. So just before,
of course,
about 4 or 5 months before lockdown. Now, how did enablement change as a consequence of that 2-year period, would you say? And also, how do you think selling changed as a consequence? How does it differ now to then?
I think we're still seeing the fallout from that in many, many respects. And we've already mentioned about, the confidence of young people. There have been loads of studies on how young people's social skills have been affected by that.
Right.
So I think we're still seeing the fallout from that now. The fact that we're still doing a lot of meetings and stuff over Zoom, for me, a lot of people were saying that it felt actually weirdly like a brave new world. Like we very quickly moved from doing enablement in person to doing it on Zoom, and everyone said this is the future. I mean, we don't need to travel anymore. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier about interactions with customers. It's the same with salespeople. For me, you cannot beat standing in a room delivering content and watching the light bulbs go on, and you can see who needs help, and you can see who's struggling, you can see who wants to get stuck in, you can see the people that desperately want to contribute but just don't feel that they can, and you can draw them out, and just the feedback you get from delivering live compared to delivering over Zoom is chalk and cheese, completely chalk and cheese.
Yes.
And I think we've still got this attitude of well, it's fine, we can do it over Zoom, particularly if it's saving money on traveling. But for me, I just think that's absolutely a false economy. So there was that, but there was one other thing that really stuck with me, Mark. And I'm going to tell you this because this is really important to me as a man, but also as the father of 2 boys. I spent a lot of time with young men who, up until COVID struck, were confident, outgoing, life and soul of the party. They were, always the ones going down the pub for beers after work, and that just changed overnight, and they were crushed. I mean, literally crushed. And I had people that I was doing coaching with, and it very quickly became apparent that they didn't actually, well, they did need the coaching, but it wasn't so much about the coaching. It was more a case of, I'm in crisis. I'm struggling on my own. I've got, I'm a young guy, 20 something, in a flat.
Might be in a bed sit, might be in a shared house or a bedroom at home.
Yeah. And I found, and I make no apology for calling out men versus women, because the women I spoke to, just, of course, women were suffering through lockdown, and I'm not diminishing that, but it was in a very, very different way. Yes. And a lot of men were really, really severely impacted, and they just needed someone to kind of talk that through and rationalize it with. And so that for me was a real moment in terms of how I enable. And we shifted from, hey, here we are, this is our agenda for the day, these are the things we're going to do, to really genuinely spending time with people, either one-to-one or even if it was in groups. And if we had to spend 20 minutes really just getting through the how are you getting on, and it's weird, isn't it? And how long it's going to last. Not bad. Yeah. So even though we had to spend a great deal of time to get through that, to get to what the session was about, it was important we did that. So yeah, it was a really, really strange old time, and but I learned an awful lot. So do you ever watch Gone Fishing with
yes.
Walter? And honestly, I mean, that's glorious anyway, and that was a wonderful thing during lockdown because it was just peaceful.
Yes.
But they actually had a guy on there, and he's exactly as you say. So he was very well aware of the kind of mental health crisis in particularly in young men and older men too. So he set up like a fishing club, and like you said, it's standing side by side. They didn't have to be a huge amount of interaction there because you were kind of getting on with it, but they were there, and you'd have a bit of a chat, and they were kind of company. And just the change in men's mental health as a result of just doing a bit of fishing. And I just think, again, that kind of thing is so important, and just you and I are kind of a generation of just, well, chill up and get on with stuff. And I think it's just important to call that out and say you don't have to. And, there are organizations. This has taken a turn, isn't it? I didn't expect us to go down this road.
But I think we might be, maybe we're tapping into something here, though. I think we might just be fortunate in as much as we went through those, our 20s and 30s and 40s, and for myself also 50s, were effectively uninterrupted by the pandemic. But for others, it will have come at different periods. I think you said they probably are certain kids' education has been affected by it. But I would also assume that many people coming into the world of work, not having what I would regard as I was in the glory days, mid-1980s sales office, busily filing cabinets, points board on the wall, smoke-filled offices, lots of noise and raucous behaviour. Great way for me to start in sales. Very different, as you said, to sitting in a bedroom with a set of headphones on, looking at a screen and beginning your sales career. But they may be more efficient and more effective on the Zoom and Teams calls. It's that transition as to whether they can or whether they need to make that shift going back to in person. So we could go on. We will go on, but
I'd love to go on. I'd love to go on.
Right now, I've got my final question, really on behalf of the sponsor of the show. I mentioned, this is in connection. for all of this season of the podcast, I'm asking each guest to pick out their favourite or their most memorable corporate hospitality type event. So whether it's a President's Club, a special event for customers maybe, or for partners. Can you think of one? What's your most memorable event?
Oh, I've had plenty that have been memorable for all the wrong reasons, which I won't go into now. Yeah. I think probably it was, what did we call it back then at IBM? 100% Club,
Right.
and it was at Sun City in South Africa,
South Africa, yeah.
and that was glorious in so many respects. I mean, it was a great location. Since going back to South Africa, and people said to me, have you been to South Africa before? And I said, I've been to Sun City. The South Africans go, it's not South Africa.
Right.
But it felt like it to me at the time.
Right.
But that was amazing. We had quad biking and loads of different things available to us. I held a crocodile for the first time. I got bitten by a lion. It was only little. I don't tell people that part of the story,
Okay.
right? So we keep that between ourselves.
Nipped by a lion.
No, I'm gonna go with bitten because it sounds a lot more dramatic, doesn't it? Right.
Yes.
So I got bitten by a lion. But just they really put on a show. Like every night you go down to dinner and you'd have to make your way through the kind of foliage, and there were people in the bushes playing drums and singing, and it just like everything about it, attention to detail. It was the first time ever that I had a sommelier at dinner. Now, I'm not a big wine drinker, right? I don't really understand wine. I much prefer a cup of tea or a vodka and Coke. But for the first time to have food paired with specific wines blew my mind. Suddenly it made sense.
Yes.
So just everything about it was just utter perfection.
Wonderful.
And I have very fond memories of that.
That's lovely. I remember my first time at a restaurant with a sommelier as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it was called the Honours Club, actually, at the company I was working for at the time.
Uh-huh.
But I said it was to me. Listen, my father was a plumber, my mother's a dinner lady. So
Yes.
having the opportunity to stay at some of the greatest hotels in the world and to have these experiences was part of my development in many respects, part of my maturing as an individual as well. So I'm
Absolutely,
like yourself, grateful to have the opportunity to do what we do. Both you and I have super jobs at the end of the day, so we're both very
honestly,
pleased with it, which is
literally I have
great.
the best job in the world.
We may well be encouraging other people into our line of work. Listen, the only challenge will be, though, Marcus, is that there won't be any more of us. We're the last generation of in-person trainers and facilitators because there's a virtual version, and it may well be that it's basically you or in 100 years' time, it's versions of you or I. We'll be like the ABBA. Have you been to that ABBA show?
No, I haven't.
The
Can you
avatars.
imagine? I've
of
heard it.
We just need to scan you, record enough of you, and then eventually they'll be able to replicate you in a virtual environment. Who knows?
Oh,
So
my
listen,
word.
Dan, thanks ever
imagine?
so much for your presence here today. I
Oh,
know you've
Mark,
been
it's been a
super
pleasure.
busy. I've loved our conversation. We have
Likewise.
gone down all sorts of rabbit holes here.
I know, great.
But
though.
I think it's made for a good chat, good conversation. I hope the audience
I'm so
like it.
pleased.
I hope they love it. Thanks ever so much for your time, and
Genuinely a pleasure.
we'll have you back at some point in the not too distant future. Until
Mark,
then,
I really look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
all the best.